How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to TableTakes. I hope you all are having an excellent fall season. That's right, I said fall season. It's not winter yet. Don't get your hopes up too soon. It's lovely weather here in sunny Seattle. Lots of us here, sorry, Noir, are enjoying it. I have a I probably want to know how cold it is over in Chicago right now, but we'll get to that later. We have a wonderful episode today, a very special episode. We have not one, but two interviews, very fun and exciting folks that we get to chat with on our show today. But before we get into any of that, we've got some fun headlines. But before we get into any of that, I want to check in with all of our lovely hosts, as we usually do, to see what kinds of fun, exciting things y'all have been up to these last couple of weeks. Bonsai, how about you?
I have horribly discovered a game about fruit that drops from the sky that I haven't broke my addiction to. You shouldn't start it. It's called the watermelon game in English, but the actual name is Suika. I think
Suika, yeah.
SUI Suika. And yes, I totally can stop it whenever I want. And same thing with my partner. We can totally stop when we want. It's just that we want to get double watermelon, and I just have not had the chance to get double watermelon.
Yeah, good luck with that. I still haven't even seen anybody do double watermelon. That's crazy, Bonsai. Are you doing it on your own stream channel?
Yes, but also off stream. But I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. It's great. And it's also another thing that I'm very excited for. Hopefully, I'll get a call from my friendly local gaming store to tell me that I can pick up my Loricana deck. Hopefully. Hopefully, it's I if I will it, it will happen.
You will be, I wouldn't say the first among us to play it or the first among us to even have cards, but you'll be the first one who gets to show everybody on our channel a full set of Lorcana cards. I can't wait to see it. Peter, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I went to Italy, but I'm not going to tell you about it. Actually, I'm going to tell you about it later. I'm going to do a whole segment on my trip to Italy to the Luca Comics and Games Convention. So what I will say I've been up to, I've been enjoying two books that have showed up in the mail while I was gone.
Ooh.
This is Heroes Feast, Flavors of the Multiverse, and this one is, oh my God, it's big. It's called Lore and Legends. Both of them are by the same four authors that have brought you some other books. I don't remember, but it's John Peterson, Michael and Sam Witwer and Kyle Newman. And I don't know, this one with this is all full of fifth edition art. So it's like, look how thick it is.
That's
It's just
so cool.
and little write-ups about the art and stuff like that. And this is a cookbook. We have the first one in the series, and Dee's cooked me a couple recipes, but that was back when I wasn't cooking. But now that I'm cooking, I am not going to let her have this book. I'm going to hog it to myself, and I'm going to find a couple recipes, and I'm going to whip them out one night.
Oh, okay. Well, watch out. That sounds awesome. Peter, I just wanted to say how cool it is that you are so good at remembering all of these names after all this time. I am so bad with names. Like, I feel like I need a Lore and Legends book, like pocket book, like pocket guide to me, like at all times. That's really cool that you care so
Okay, man, you're
much.
really sweet, but I cheated. If you look in the agenda, you'll see I wrote down the names. Thank you.
Oh man, I
Oh,
tried my best to give you some cool
sweet.
points on the stream, but you took it away from yourself. Self-inflicted fire. Speaking of which, Noir, what have you been up to these last few weeks?
What? Why does that remind you of me? No, well, okay, so I've got a confession. I've got another gig where I went to New York. I can't really talk too much about it, but it did involve some web swinging, and I had to take out Venom, and it was a whole deal. I played a lot of Spider-Man 2 while we were away.
Oh,
Very excited that Asmodee is bringing back the Star Wars dice because now I can get back into playing Star Wars. And Peter was showing off a book that you got. Wizards was kind enough to send us Planescape over here. We've got this in the special edition one, so we can traverse the stars in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm very excited about it.
that's so
Uh,
cool.
but that's what I've been up to
That's
these last
awesome.
couple of days.
I know how much you love Planescape, so that's so cool that you got like a whole special edition and everything. I can't wait to get
What
your
about you,
book review.
Davion? What have you been up to, man?
Um, well, I don't know if you can hear my voice, but I'm still, as of this moment, still recovering from that really long trip. That I started with all of y'all in Vegas for TwitchCon, but then I just rolled over into a cross-country trek. I actually did go to New York, but I didn't see you there, Noir. That's weird. I saw this weird flying creature swinging around the buildings, but I didn't see you.
That's weird. I was hanging out. You could say I was miles ahead. Who knows?
Well, I'm sorry we missed each other. Maybe next time we'll meet up in New York.
No
Um,
problem.
I've also picked up a new game. I dare say my new favorite video game of all time. It's called Headbangers. Finally, a battle royale game made for me. It is a battle royale game similar to like PUBG or Fortnite, but it's all rhythm and music games. So it's kind of like Fall Guys style, where you're trying to qualify round after minigame after minigame until you get to the very end and you prove that you have more rhythm than every other pigeon who's weirdly dressed in the game. So I've gotten so many tournament wins. I feel so alive when I play it. You know what else makes me feel alive, everybody? Headlines, board game news. That's what we've got for y'all folks today. And boy, do we have some big headlines for you. First, let's head into some Warhammer 40K news. If you're a fan of the TTRPG, Warhammer 40K, or if you're a fan of Warhammer in general, or maybe you've always wanted to play the role-playing game version of it, well, Cubicle 7 has just released the boxed set, a new boxed set called the Wrath and Glory Starter Set. It comes with Trader's Hymn, which is a 48-page adventure that teaches you how to play the game with no prep needed whatsoever. It tells you all the dice that you're going to need. I mean, it comes in the box set. It's really cool. It's only going to retail for $39.99, which as box sets go is awesome, especially with a big RPG like this. Because if you know anything about Warhammer 40K, you know that it's kind of a big game, kind of a big deal. And they managed to give a lot of extra stuff all in this little box set. Information on NPCs, plot hooks, a whole one-page adventure, and much, much more. It even comes with some pre-generated characters so you can just get up and running right off the bat. It really seems like the folks who work at Cubicle 7 to create this starter set really had the starter set mentality in mind, making sure that if you're interested in Warhammer 40K as an RPG, a TTRPG, that you have everything you need right from the start and then you can jump into it as easily as possible. I have a friend who may or may not be in chat right now because I told them that there's some exciting news that they would want to tune in for. But I have a friend who loves the Warhammer 40K RPG system, has like at the end of every D&D session, they're just like, just so you know, like I play this game. It's like my favorite RPG, actually. It's called Warhammer 40K. Now there's a starter set. Now they can take it and run with it and introduce more people to the game. So I don't know if you guys are interested, but now's the perfect time to jump on it if you wanna try it out. Well, I think let's just move right into our next headline. Let's send it over to Noir for some Monty Cook Games news.
Heck yeah, let's continue the box set. This is gonna be a little bit of a bigger box set, but Monty Cook Games has announced the relaunch of its groundbreaking tabletop role-playing game, Invisible Sun. Monty Cook announced that it's bringing it back in a form of a limited reprint. Originally, it was released in 2018. The game's core box set, known as the Black Cube, sold out almost immediately. The second printing in 2019 also quickly sold out. You're not able to get your hands on these original printings without shelling out a pretty penny. Trust me, I've looked. The upcoming crowdfunding campaign aims to bring this highly sought after piece of TTRPG history back into the hands of gamers. Invisible Sun offers a highly original setting and gameplay mechanics that have set new standards in the TTRPG industry, known for its surrealist setting, complex mechanics, and astonishing beauty. The game has been highly praised by critics and gamers alike. Players are introduced to a multi-dimensional universes called the Actuality, where magic, reality, and secrets blend seamlessly. Listen, I have heard from some of my most trusted gaming friends about how amazing this is. I'm also incredibly jealous that they have it. So now it's my chance to get it. So why am I presenting this to all of you? Never mind. Forget this headline. Wait till I get it and then you can get it. But seriously, if you like content like The Magicians, the TV show, and the book series, this is going to be something for you. Arcane magic in a modern setting, told by a master storyteller and game designer, Monty Cook. So, have you all heard of this? And if not, what do you think about it?
Definitely have heard about it. That it is one of those like very hard to grab and one of those like sets that you could definitely bludgeon somebody with. And when that's always a good quality in a game if it's got enough in it that if you were to put it at least two like on a second floor and drop it from a second floor window, that it will wipe somebody out.
Yeah, it's 30 pounds. It's 30 pounds of gaming in this black box.
I love that we're now measuring games by weight. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
yeah. And I think this is fantastic. I love Monty Cook. I love his company. I love his work. I enjoy the times that I've got a chance to work with Monty. Yeah, good. I'm just so glad to see him keep cranking out really, really interesting stuff. Just keep going, Monty. Keep going.
Yeah, you had me at custom dice. I love anything with custom dice, anything that rearranges the faces so that they look specific to the game system that they're using, and something to add to my collection so that it's not just a big mishmash of polyhedrals. So that's really cool. I hope you do get a chance to let us know what you think about it, Noor.
Yeah, I'm gonna break laws to get this. No, I'm not. I didn't say that. Stop receiving me now.
Moving right along, let's get to some WotC news, some more D&D stuff with Bonsai.
Yes, a lot of exciting announcements happened 2 weeks ago in Milwaukee. So thank you to Christian Hoffer at comicbook.com for this news that is coming to us. So if you guys don't know, basically during GameholeCon in Milwaukee, D&D hosted it basically WotC hosted a D&D panel where they teased about some of their plans for 2024, and basically in addition to the new core rule books, WotC also hinted that would get the classics coming back, some sort of like 50th anniversary anthology collections that you can get. Basically, if there's a lot of those like reprints of a lot of classic adventures such as Expedition to Barrier's Peak and Lost Caverns of Karnath. I'm so sorry. I thought I had this pronounced in my head. Please correct me. But yes.
Soskant.
Soskant. Thank you. I got that round. I was like, oh, I forgot how to pronounce this. Both were basically loved adventures from AD&D. Basically, the Expedition in particular is mostly fondly regarded as a D&D like D&D's adventures of all time. It includes like aliens and space. Like basically, science happened so far in advance, something apocalyptic happened, covered it up, and then that's how fantasy came about. Kind of thing and also new manual for planes. They also showed some hints and references about couple of Forgotten Realm classics, the Infinite Staircase and Rod of 7 parts. Maybe the Infinite Staircase could be part of a manual of planes, and the Rod could be a hint coming up to a campaign surrounding the Rod. So very exciting news for those. And then I'm sure like Peter, you're saying some things about like you're like, yes, I want these. You're probably gonna buy them.
Oh yeah, Barrier Peaks. That's a great. It's somewhere in the mountains of Greyhawk. Underneath those mountains, there's a spaceship where you can find blasters and powered armor. I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah, back in the day, it was very there was a very fine line between fantasy and science fiction back in the early days of D&D. You know, you just kind of mix and match the two however you felt like it. It's fun to go back to that. Good job, Watsy.
Yeah, but yes, that is all I have to report. Coming back to classics, all that good stuff, 2024.
I'm sure we are all looking forward to yet more more D&D content. Rehashing old stuff is nothing new. Speaking of nothing new, let's head on over to Peter for the next headline about a convention that isn't Gen Con.
That's right. I'm calling this a field report. In fact, I think we should consider this as a segment once in a while. One of us goes some crazy place and comes back and reports on it. So I was last week in Lucca, Italy. Lucca is a province in Tuscany, small city, 89,000 people, but much of the city is intact from the Renaissance era. So it's beautiful. Like all the Renaissance walls are still there, and they've got, you know, a cathedral and an opera house and everything. The convention calls itself the second largest comics convention after San Diego. It had attendance of 314,000. That's turnstile attendance. So it's a bit bigger than Gen Con. This convention started in 1965. It started as a comics convention, Lucca Comics, and in 1996 between Lucca Comics and Games. But it is still primarily a comics convention, but games is a very strong category. Frank Miller was the key guest of honor. I was there, however, for the 30th anniversary of the launch of Magic the Gathering in Italy. So they had this as a special program. They had a bunch of people that were involved in that there to talk about Magic back in the day and how it came to be, how come Italian ended up being the first language that Magic was translated into. There's a panel about that. There was a beautiful Magic exhibit that they built in one of the beautiful buildings of Lucca on the history of Magic with lots of cool art. I was there on a press junket. I'd never been on a press junket before. If I had, I didn't know it was called that, but that was fun. But the highlight for me is I ended up running a Dungeons and Dragons game for Joe Manganella, Tony DiTerlizzi, Ryan Vernier, Stefan Picorni, and Zoltar, who's like the #1 Italian streamer of tabletop games. So there's like quite a prestigious group. I never ran a game in like this big of a setting. It was an opera house with 700 people were there watching it. It was streamed live on the Twitch channel for Lucca Comics and Games. But here's the fun part is that Joe Manganella was going to run this game, but because Tony DiTerlizzi was there, who is well known for Planescape art. Ooh, nice callback to earlier in the show. He said, well, I don't know Planescape. And I'm like, ooh, I'll do it. And so I got to run this game. And so little did they know what I would do with that information because, you know, I was back in the day quite the power gamer, you know, played lots of high level D&D, demigods, you know, running around on planes. So like I was used to doing stuff like that before Planescape even came out. Yeah, this is like a real grognard moment, let me tell you. So I ran a game basically. They were all demigods. I created 5 demigod player characters. I ran it using AD&D as the base system, and it was like totally bogus, epic, high level. Like the first 15, I killed them all, but they were all gods, so they just regrew their bodies and came back and tried to get on this ship of chaos. They ended up running into Elric. They ended up running into the Lochnar, the Stormbringer, all sorts of crazy stuff. Anyway, it was just a crazy over-the-top game. I had a lot of fun. They had a lot of fun, and I think people were like, "Okay, you broke AD&D, Peter. That was crazy." Anyway, so yeah, I'm still excited about it, as you can probably tell. Anyway, and yeah, the convention was cool too.
Well, yeah, sounds like you had a lot of fun. Wow, that's amazing. Peter, what a crazy life you lead. I would love to get you on your own show someday. Just field reports, just going out to conventions and just meeting with people and running games like you usually do. But we get to get a little glimpse into it. Unfortunately, we are running a little low on time because we have 2 interviews today. But we have one last quick headline. It's a really quick headline. Think of it as a little teaser until we get more information. Magic the Gathering. Maybe you've heard of it. Marvel. Maybe you've heard of that too. Well, guess what? There is going to be a crossover. Magic the Gathering is going to be featuring Marvel Avengers on their cards in 2025. Now, while we don't have a lot of information right now, we know that according to Hasbro, this is going to be a multi-year, multi-set deal, not just a one-off drop. So we're eagerly awaiting more information on that. And hopefully by next week or sometime in the near future, we actually get some more details to share with you. But looks like we have our guest ready to go. So we're going to just transition over into our interview with InFUNity's own Michelle.
Howdy, y'all.
Hello, hello.
Hello,
All right.
Michelle. Hello, John.
Hello.
Hey, you all. Peter, it's been too long.
It has been. It has been too long. You guys are looking good.
Well, thank you. You too.
You're in still way up in northern Minnesota. or something?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about as far north as you can get and
Yeah.
still be the USA and not Canada.
It's not that much difference for latitude, but
Yeah.
it feels, because we're in the
It'll
middle of
get
the
a lot
continent,
colder.
it feels colder. It's a lot colder. It's been snowing outside today a little bit.
It snowed on Halloween. That's the
Whoa.
thing. Halloween around here always have to be things that go over snow pants because it happens a lot.
A real nightmare before Christmas
I'm,
deal.
I'm just glad to have some more Midwesterners here with me. I'm outnumbered usually. So this is nice.
Well, welcome to the show, John and Michelle Nephew. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you all were featured on Time magazine as one of the best inventions of 2023.
All right.
Part of, not
So
exactly.
we need to clarify that. No, we were not featured on Time magazine.
I
A
see.
mathematical discovery that was just published in March was featured as a top invention of the year, and
Along with dozens and dozens
yes,
others,
along with a lot of other things. And basically, the Time magazine writer had the same enthusiasm as we had when we learned about it, which was that it was an amazing shape that we think that there's a lot of possibility that is only going to become apparent when we have a whole bunch of them to play with. And so that became our goal: is how can we have thousands of these? And the answer is injection molding.
So what this is it is in fact a geometrical shape. And the point of it is that you can fit it together in ways that never repeat. So it's not like, oh, look, I've got a square and I put all the squares together and look, it's a grid and it repeats forever. No, not that kind of thing. There are no repetitions and you can tile forever. And so that is an interesting thing to us, especially as gamers, because it turns out the reason this works is because it's actually hex-based. And so if you look at this shape and you put them together, there are invisible little hexes that form. And to me, as a gamer, that immediately becomes super interesting. And as a game designer too, I want to see, how can I make a game board out of this? I'm imagining things like, like a Settlers of Catan board, but you have multiple different colors for each hex. And so then you can get resource allocation in different ways for each space, for example.
It's a strange thing because you look at it and it's kind of a weird shape.
Looks like a hat.
Yeah, some people
Or a
call it a hat.
shirt.
Some people think it looks like a t-shirt or maybe some baggy pants. But the thing about it, we've made prototype ones with our benchtop injection molding machine, and they're not as good as industrial ones would be, but they certainly do the job. And so we've put like dozens of them in front of kids and adults and just said, here, take this. And it's fascinating to watch them interact with it. And what often happens that I've seen is that they'll play with it for a few minutes and then suddenly a light bulb goes off and they'll say, wait, this is all the same shape. Because when you change its orientation, you're not used to visualizing it in the way that it turns in 3 dimensions and all around. And then they suddenly realize, oh, this is the same shape, but it interlocks. And yeah, just like the way that pi never has a repeating pattern in the numbers after the 3 beyond the decimal point. Similarly, you would never have a repeating pattern in any direction. You could cover a infinite plane, and there would be no place where you could set down a mirror on the surface, and where what you would see on the mirror, the reflection in the mirror would always be different from what you would see on the other side of the mirror.
So it's pretty much the ultimate gamer's puzzle is what we saw.
So linking this back to the Time article, so a mathematician came up with this somehow?
So this
wasn't a mathematician either.
It was the question was posed among mathematicians apparently back in the 1960s, where they said, okay, we can have periodic tiling. So a periodic tile is, say, a hexagon. Hexagons can go forever. What about an aperiodic tile, where it would be one shape, but it would never have that pattern repeat? And so they argued about whether it was possible. In the 1970s, a guy by the name of Roger Penrose came up with pairs of shapes that are called Penrose tiles. And sometimes you'll see these in fancy floor designs and stuff like that. And so those shapes in combination will never repeat. But people for 50 years argued about whether it was possible for a single shape by itself to do that. And last November, a retired printing technician in the UK, not a mathematician, a guy who worked in a print shop all his life, who was fascinated by this problem, was fiddling around and said, "By Jove, I think I found it."
He's British.
Yeah. And so he contacted 3 university mathematicians around the world. There's one who I know is out in New York, and one is in Canada. I'm not sure. And the other one might be in the UK. And he said, I think I'm onto something here. And they all did the mathematical proof and published this paper and submitted it and said, yeah, this is proof. Now, with that shape, sometimes you have to flip it over. Something like about 1 in 7 times you have to turn it upside down in order to complete the pattern. And so some people said, well, then it's not really aperiodic. So they actually have come up with another shape 2 months later that again excited all the math nerds. And that one is called the Spectre. It has a lot of different varieties and shapes. It's a little bit more like a puzzle piece in shape, but that truly, only with the one side, can tile a plane infinitely.
Well, I just love how us gamers are such geeks that when the math nerds get excited, we just get excited that the math nerds are excited.
Right? Well, and we immediately are thinking, I mean, I'm very into crafting and woodworking and stuff like that. And so it just really pokes my artistic instincts to think of what could be done with this. I want to do a wall mural where we do like a fantasy dragon, but it's made up like pixel art. Only the pixels are all the shape.
There we go. Instead of balloon art at Gen Con, we could do a wall mural.
Exactly.
In infinity tiles. There you go.
And I think I've been toying around with a bunch of board game ideas for it. I think it would be really neat for world building because you have this kind of organic shape. And so but because of the way that it interacts with the hexagons, you could have tiles that you can color stuff into and get really fascinating paths and stuff that it's never, I mean, it's almost like a fractal, but it's much more like handsy because you can have these things in your hand and put them together rather than having the computer stuff that fractals involve.
One of the things I noticed in the Kickstarter is that you actually have a rule set up for InFUNit game rules, and it was only after reading this that I started getting ideas of my own. Is this?
I couldn't help myself. John said we shouldn't do rules; it should just be a puzzle and let people come up with their own stuff, And then I put it in an update because I couldn't stop myself.
I think it's the right idea.
Well, it really did get me thinking after I read it, and I wanted to know if that's something that is common in your community after having seen some examples of how to gamify it. Have you gotten more examples from the community?
Oh, easy. And the thing is really, it's only been 6 months since this thing was even discovered. And so that's barely long enough to figure out that this is a really interesting puzzle, let alone playtest rules. So really, me throwing out my first ideas for rules, I'm hoping to get input from the gaming community and tell me what other patterns they can see. I was at a pub with a mathematician who was pointing out how certain 90-degree angles should not have a split in them because that indicates a wrong placement. I'm like, yeah, and I would never see that. And that's what mathematicians are for, right? So we need to talk with folks. We need to see what other people do with it to get a real sense of where the rule set needs to go.
It's very much a building block to go in the gamer's toolbox. And my experience, I mean, the thing that pushed us to do the Kickstarter was that I was doing I was at an open house for the local waste management facility.
That's the dump in case.
Yes.
you didn't know
So
what
we've
that
been
is.
working with them on this plastic recycling thing, which this is tied into. And so I was there doing demonstrations of making recycled plastic dice on the spot out of garbage that we were taking from people's trash.
Kind of a little side effort, a little
Yeah,
studio
so,
that we're working on.
but I had a number of these that we had made experimentally, because I read about it like in June. I told a guy who was making a machine for us. He got all excited about it. He's a guy out in Idaho who runs a game convention as well as running a machine shop and plastics molding thing. Anyway,
Gamers are everywhere.
he sent me when he sent us our new injection machine. He sent a model of this laser cut out of steel to use for molding. So we had made a bunch of those, and I had them sitting on the table, and kids and adults kept picking it up and playing with it. And it was clear that there is a tactile thing that happens with it. And I mean, I know, as gamers, we love our minis, we love our dice, we love our terrain. I mean,
We love our
we
big
like
handfuls of
yes,
things.
we want things in our hands, and that's something that tabletop gaming really really embraces.
So John, I hate to interrupt you, but we have a ringer among us. We happen to have one of our hosts of this show is actually a guru expert at constructing things, woodworking, casting. So Bonsai, what do you got to say about this?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, one of the bigger questions that I had for you is like, why did you decide to go into more sustainable, like plastic kind of route for these game pieces? Is there like another collective reason of why you want to be more eco-friendly conscious first? Because I know that the molding process, especially injection molding process, can be kind of difficult in terms of like laying it all out and getting it to cool down in time. So is there a reason why you chose this versus like laser cut wood or laser cutting in general that a lot of people do?
So we, in the course of the COVID pandemic, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about making stuff. And something I got hooked on was people who were working with things like milk jugs and high density polyethylene and home recycling, basically making slingshots and pens and all kinds of stuff. And this led me to a group called Precious Plastic, which makes open source designs for plastic recycling on a micro scale. So people are doing this all over the world. And through Precious Plastic, I've been in communication with people in places like Indonesia and the Philippines and all over Europe, where they're building lumber out of old plastic bags to build playgrounds and all kinds of stuff like that. So a lot of that is an inspiration for us. So we started then in COVID, the supply chain issues that we all ran into and the transportation issues and stuff like that, it all kind of came to a head as we realized that a game that we had done, the Super Deluxe Kickstarter version, was made out of virgin polyvinyl chloride plastic.
So that is a Dice Miner. So that is a centerpiece that is, it's a gaming channel, dude. So, so that is this plastic mountain, and the standard edition has a very nice cardboard type version, but the deluxe version has the 3D model of the mountain, and it's so excellent, but it's also an environmental atrocity.
Yeah,
and so we decided not to do that again. So
we talked to our supplier in China who had manufactured it and said, could you do this in a different plastic other than PVC? And they said, well, no, we don't think so, because the mold was made for PVC specifically. And then we said,
they just don't want to do it. They don't want to try it.
We do it with recycled material. And they said, well, we don't think we can rely on the quality and consistency of recycled material. So our response was, well, look, we know we are never going to do it in PVC again. So the next shipping container we had of board games coming from them, we said, just send us our mold and we'll see what we can do with it here. And much sooner than I expected.
They were stunned. They had never shipped a mold back to anybody ever.
Just like, they were like, well, it's going to cost,
we'd have to put it in a wooden crate that we'd have to build out the lumber. I'm like, yeah, that's what we want to do.
And it's like, it's 700 pounds of steel.
It's enormous.
It's a monster. So we unloaded that from the front of the container where it was sitting, and it sat for some months in our warehouse. And then I came across some guys. I actually was buying some used equipment on eBay, and I found it was in Somerset, Wisconsin, which is only 2.5 hours away. It's down by the Twin Cities. And these guys were selling an old industrial injection molder. I wound up saying, hey, I'm going to buy that. long story short, it turns out that this is an operation. It's called Updog Products. It's run by two brothers who in their day job are plastics engineers for 3M. And like,
and then wait a
ever
second,
since
because there's a
college,
good part to this. So they live in Somerset outside of the Twin Cities. They have a warehouse full of all the equipment they keep buying off of 3M and other places cheap when they're getting thrown out. And it's right next to a brew pub. So they sit there drinking their beer, watching their plastic stuff come out of the machine in the back warehouse. They're interesting guys.
They were an amazing find because this is a side gig for them, but they have absolutely world-class expertise in everything from understanding polymers to the engineering details of back pressure and this, that, and the other thing. Because they do the absolute, high-end stuff. They do multi-million-dollar molds and things for 3M in their day job. And they've been accumulating these things. When they hear somebody's getting rid of an old device, they're like, oh, we can get that. And then they set it up. So they, unlike the folks in China, I went down and visited them, and I'm like, would you use some of this crap that we're getting up here in Duluth? Because we had started looking into this precious plastic stuff, and
so we're getting things from the dump.
plastic.
Remember the dump? This actually is circling back. We're getting things from the dump, like kids' pools and sleds and things like that.
Rubbermaid bins from people's storage containers and stuff like that.
Cat litter, how it comes in the big containers of 5-gallon buckets.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with the bucket? So that's the kind of stuff we're getting from the local waste facility, and asking these guys down in Wisconsin if they can run it through their machine.
And basically they're willing to try anything. So we did a new version of the Dice Miner Mountain, which is on the market now. And it is actually made of medicine bottles, vitamin bottles that we got from pharmacies here in Duluth. The local recycling system won't take small bottles. They're high density polyethylene. It's very recyclable, but the sorting for single sort machinery can't deal with it. So what we're doing was just sending it to the landfill. And so we've started taking those from them. We shred them up, we leave the labels on, and then the mountain comes out with little tiny bits of label in it. Ta-da, it works just great. So these guys are willing to work with us. They actually did the design for the mold for the InFUNit tiles. So they are ready to go. If we hit our funding target, I'm going to tell Kim, make it so, sir, send him a down payment.
And here's the thing, is this first print run of the InFUNit tiles will recycle 5,000 pounds of plastic.
Wow.
From Western Lake Superior area.
Yeah. And I'm most excited because besides this being really cool, once we have this pair of, they're called master unit die frames, we're going to be able to switch out other things and very easily do things like hexagonal. I really want to do hexagonal tiles that would be like wilderness terrain rendered like 3-dimensionally, like a topological map that you'd be able to like build out your whole campaign world with 3.5-inch tiles.
All recycled plastic.
Yes,
It'd be great.
So then we're not
The more
shipping it
plastic
across.
we can use it, the better.
Yep, we're keeping it out of landfill. I mean, we literally know this is stuff that was going to go into the landfill across St. Louis Bay in northern Wisconsin, if we weren't taking it. And yeah, and then we're not shipping it around the world. We're not. Yeah, it's just really cool. So
hey, before we run out of time, we tell us about the Kickstarter, like just like the basics, like where to go, what to do, what do you get, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So you want to jump on this? You're going to want me to do it because I have energy.
There are 2 different versions. There is a kids version that is red and yellow and blue, and it's larger sizes. And then there is the adult coffee house version, which is much smaller tiles that are in
earth tones.
Yes, it is black
More
and white
mellow.
and gray and tan to match your coffee house decor.
And then we will also, once we have the molds, what we are able to do is run any old plastic we want in it and any color. So I'm looking forward to going down and actually being in the plan and be like, hey, we're going to make sparkly pink pearlescent ones and stuff like that. Yeah. And then we'll have, we have a random add-on tier that'll be like, we send you an additional 10 tiles of whatever we have from experimenting with it.
Oh, another neat one is the donate to a school kid tier. Yes. So you can, if this is just not your thing at all, but you still want to be part of it, you can just click that link for donating to a school kid.
5th and 6th grade math teachers get really excited about this. That seems to be kind of the sweet spot pedagogically. It's one of our employees took it to parent teacher conferences and said that her child's math teacher pulled out like a basket of tiles of different. He was like, "Oh, this is so exciting," and then started talking about the other ones that she had.
It is so great to see two people who are so passionate about what they do, bringing something like this. And can I just say, as a board gamer, as a math nerd, as a recipient of the deluxe edition of Dice Miner, thank you so much for coming onto our show and letting us speak with you. This was truly lovely. Thank you so much.
Atlasgamescom/InfunityKS will
Like Kickstarter.
yeah. INFUNITY
Spell the
KS.
whole thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Thank you, thank you, thank
Supposed
you.
to plug
Find
the
it.
URL.
There's Google.
Yes, Google will help. Great
All
to
right.
see you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
See you.
Bye, Peter.
Bye, Michelle. Bye, John.
See ya.
All right, folks. Well, that is going to lead us into our second interview of the episode. We're going to have on David Somerville of Planegea. So let's go on over to our transition here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome David Somerville.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're
Welcome,
excited to
David.
have you. Please tell us about Planegea. Tell us about what you do.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I am a creative director by day and a game designer by night. And in nerd circles, I'm mostly known for this beast of a book, which, man, I just happen to have right there. What are the odds? This is a Stone Age setting for 5e. It's got magic dinosaurs, primal elves, dwarves that have just crawled up from underground and are still half stone. It's got proto-gods and ooze shamans and more sort of primal goodness than you can shake a pointy stick at. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like a lot of fun. So what sets this apart in terms of 5e settings?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's in a tradition of settings like Eberron that sort of say we don't want to cut things out of 5e. We want to celebrate everything that is Dungeons and Dragons and everything that is 5e. We don't want to tell you you can't play this or you can't play that. What we want to say is absolutely that's in there, but it just doesn't feel like what you might expect. So what we've done for Planegea is that we've taken everything you love about 5e and then we've just dragged it back, like Jurassic Park when the guy's getting dragged by the raptor in the opening scene, dragged it kicking and screaming back into the Stone Age. So the whole project is sort of what is true about elves? What do we feel like we want to be when we're an elf? And how do we express that in this really wild, primal way? So that's the project. It's really meant to be that you could pick up Curse of Strahd and convert it to the Stone Age and just run it, or have entirely new sort of Stone Age adventures that you've never imagined before in the setting. And it's great. I'm playing a campaign in it right now, and I love it.
I just really want to thank you for Path of the Far Striker Barbarian. I love throwing things, especially throwing things into bad guys, and just
yeah.
I just so the artwork in this book is fantastic. Did you also serve as art director in this?
You know, it was a team effort, but that was really important to me from the beginning. I sort of said, you know, I'm very, very humbly and modestly, I was like, I want this to feel like a Wizards of the Coast book. Like, I want this to feel like the real thing.
Yeah.
What sets them apart is one of the things is 5th edition has gorgeous art. So that was in there from the very beginning, as it was part of the conception from the start.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't tell you how much I love the prison Jack Triceratops.
Yeah, you're welcome. You and everyone else will love it. I'm going to see if I can flip to him to show our studio. Oh, wow. I opened right to him. There he is.
Oh, wow.
Good.
It's not a
Good,
question
well
of if he went to prison. It's what he went to prison for.
You know what's funny about that piece is when I got him back, the original draft, he's by the amazing Corey Trigo Erdner, who did work for the Monster Manual as well as a bunch of other stuff. When I got him back, he was so cute. He was like pink and he was like had a little smile. I was like, Corey, this is an amazing piece of art. I need him to be like 80% more evil. And so he basically sent him to jail. And then when he got out, he looked like that.
You sent them in a pair for being too cute out there.
I did. It's
You're
true.
too cute. You had to go to jail.
But I think you could do a whole show just with art directors and
Yeah.
like that they have with artists. Like what the heck is this?
I had a question for you on this. How much of you making this campaign and setting was just based off of your childhood obsession with punching dinosaurs? I feel like that's a big motivation behind that.
Every other like kid who's into Dungeons and Dragons, I like hit plenty of trees with plenty of sticks. I was like, my biggest dinosaur childhood memory is the day, and this will date me, the day that I found out that Brontosaurus was no longer a dinosaur. I went onto my yard and I screamed at the sky because there was a point in the like 90s. That was my favorite dinosaur. Shout out Land Before Time and Littlefoot, where Brontosaurus is like my favorite dinosaur. They decided it wasn't a dinosaur. I got very upset. And now it's a dinosaur again. So that story has a happy ending, I guess. We'll all hope the same for Pluto.
Oh, we'll see.
Well, this is my first time finding out that Brontosaurus isn't a dinosaur anymore. So thank you.
Oh, he is again. You're good now.
Oh, good. Oh.
Yeah, you missed that whole horrible moment in our life.
Oh, okay.
Another thing that I'd love to compliment you on with this setting in particular is there have been some controversies with like, do we call them races? Do we call them lineage? And, the name monk for the class monk. I love how gracefully this book handles it with being called kinships. The alternate names that you have for classes, like Chanter for Bard, Guardian for Paladin, Scavenger and Spellskin for Rogue and Wizard, respectively, it just all fits into the setting and it just works. So I just want to.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that works. There were times when I was asking myself if those things would be impediments, but so much of what we do when we go to do medieval tabletop role playing is we have this sort of pastiche in our mind for what medieval is, that it really isn't. It's like vaguely Renaissance and maybe sort of like cowboys as well. But we call it medieval. It's this like bundle of goods. And I think it was like a light bulb moment when I was like, you can do that just as well for other eras and other times. And it's actually even easier to be Stone Age because you don't have to know how drawbridge works. There isn't a drawbridge, or if there is, it's somebody hauling on a rope, Flintstone style, to raise it up and down. And so some of those terms like monk or bard had a very kind of medieval sound to them. And again, this idea of like dragging everything back into the Stone Age, really, we wanted to do that and it was important. And then for me as an author, I'll just say I learned a ton in the writing of this book. I started it by reading a lot of sword and sorcery source material. I wanted to feel like the origins of the game since I was trying to make something that was about the origins of the world. So I went back and I like studied, the earliest sword and sorcery stuff. Shout out to Appendix and Book Club podcast. It's fantastic. And in that there are a lot of harmful tropes. And so some of those things were in the earliest version of this because I was ignorant and it was in the tropes. And in the writing, I was so fortunate to learn and grow as a person and to have people sort of like help me understand. And so I think that the final book, it's not perfect by any stretch. Nothing ever is, but I think it really represents my journey in trying to grow as a person and an attempt to sort of make something that is truly deeply respectful to everybody.
I wonder if I could ask you a question
Yeah.
about your setting. So how were you able to manage keeping a rich political intrigue and like a whole magic system in a setting that is prehistoric or primal? Because speaking for myself and maybe many others, you hear primal or prehistoric, you think, oh, it's before they figured out like what to do with this magic or before they figured out how to rule a kingdom and things like that.
Totally. No, that is the core question. So I came up with the setting before setting out for a year of van life, and then like worked on it over that year. Before I set out, I played one playtest game with my brother who's into D&D, and it was like, you're a primal hunter. He's like, yes, you go out in the snow. He's like, yes, I do. You killed something. Yeah. What now? I don't know. Let me drive around for a year and think about it. And so I did. And what came about was reading source material, reading H.G. Wells' Story of the Stone Age, dipping a little bit into Clan of the Cave Bear, trying to think about like what makes prehistoric stories really good and juicy. And there was this light bulb moment where I think it's in the story of this. It's a combination of those. It's an idea that's sort of like nestled in between those two stories of there's this idea of a god that is just becoming a god, or an animal that is just becoming a god. So in Planegea, you don't have the god of the moon, the god of day, the god of war, none of that. What you have is that bear over on that hill has been alive for a really, really, really long time. We're all kind of scared of him. And so we're going to like bring offerings there. And then because we all reverence him, he starts to accrue divine powers. And so they're called proto-gods. And these proto-gods then become locked in place. They can't leave their lair. And so they're part of the land, and they're part of the environment, and they work as magic shops and quest givers. And the proto-god as a structure is incredible for politics, magic systems, magic item crafting, all of this stuff, because what it does is you have this, like kings or nobles in a medieval setting, this patchwork terrain of different gods at different levels who are sort of like over their domain, that they might like you, they might hate you, but they all need something, and they all want to make their power bigger, and they want to eat other gods so they can become more powerful. And so when this came about, it was like, now we've got a political situation. Now we've got kingdoms, but they're just like the terrain of these, like the fire god and the dragon god and whatever, god you're going to encounter over the next hill. The saber-toothed squirrel god, whose whole kingdom is just like a stump, but he's all powerful on that stump. It's really fun. It's a good time.
And you're getting in on the ground floor of an emerging pantheon rather than like jumping into a system, having to learn all about that's so cool.
It's such a present tense book. I was just thinking about this. There are things that I know that I had to make as like a lore of the setting just so I was consistent. But almost the entire book, there's almost nothing that's like, and a long time ago, this happened. It's all like, right now, this faction is a problem. Right now, this threat is on the rise, including the gods, including like constellations are formed new every night. Like everything is happening right now, and your characters are going to be the one who shape everything.
Cool.
I think we got time for
I just have one question. What do you got against the number 10?
The number 10, I'm an artist. Anytime I can get away from numbers, I love to. In fact, my medieval campaign, my regular, I had a 1 to 20 campaign that I just finished. It was in my kitchen sink fantasy setting, and they started making fun of me because they started calling any amount of distance units. Oh, it's like 10 distance units away. I don't know. What is time? What is space? I don't have time for this. I went to art school. I just draw pictures. So, but I heard, and this might be apocryphal, that a long time ago, there was 1 to 9. And then when you got up to this many or more, that was many. And there are ideas in the system that you're talking about, which are the black taboos, and they are designed as a DM tool to, when I first introduced the setting idea to people, they would basically say like, oh yeah, ooga booga, I'm going to go club things with a stick. I was like, I feel like you could be like a wizard and smart and like do all kinds of interesting things. But it felt like everyone was going to be like, great, I'm going to invent a train. I'm going to invent the alphabet. I'm going to invent modern agriculture. Like this is all that I can do in this setting. And so there is this metaphysical threat in the setting that prevents you from doing things. If you like that, if the DM likes it, there's how not to do that in the book as well. But what it does is like, don't worry about trying to invent agriculture. Go kill a cave bear and like harvest its skin and like establish a clan and become a warlord. Like that's way more interesting.
Yes, Ooga Booga, the first I rage. David, can you tell us, how do we get our hands on Planegea?
You can go to atlas-games.com/Planegea. You can Google Planegea. It's like the planes of existence and Pangea. The idea of the setting is that the planes have not yet separated, and you can walk from the fire plane to the Feywild, everything. I'll not keep on selling it, but it's atlas-games /Planegea, or just Google Planegea, and it's wherever fine RPG books are sold.
We just
Excellent.
posted the link in chat. So
Even
good.
easier, click the link in chat.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto our show, David. Do you really quickly, do you have anything that you're working on that you want to let us know about?
I just concluded a really fun experiment. It's an entire space opera and sorcery setting on a movie poster. It's everything that I learned from this in haiku form on a single poster, and it's really good fun. The Kickstarter just ended, but that is called Prismanox. So Google Prismanox. It's also kind of fun.
You are speaking my language. Thank you so much for coming on, David. Please stick around for just a bit while we do our sign off. But thank you so much for coming onto our show. It was a true pleasure
Thanks for
having
having
you.
me. This was a blast. Take care.
All right, Peter, take it away.
All right. Well, that concludes another charismatic episode of Table Takes. But stick around because up next we have Sarah's Table, where Sarah Moore is joined by the Crown's Damon Van He for a session 0 of Passport, a game about coming together during a far-flung separation. Today, 5 p.m. Pacific time here on Gen Con TV. On Peter versus the Machine, I will continue my game of Sid Meier's Civilization 6 as Canada seeking a diplomatic victory. Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I think there's a high chance that this will be the last session in the last episode in this game. In other words, the game's going to end and I'm going to win. Pretty damn sure about that. All right. The Bros will be back for Board Games with the Brothers Murph. That's Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. In Indie by Night, the Coterie will try and figure out what to do with their new blood bag. Now, I'm not up on vampire, like everything that goes on in that game, but I think I know what a blood bag is. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time here on Gen Con TV. On Path of the Brush, Jeff Campbell Crawley, the organizer for the Michigan GT, will join Rick Ankney in painting Parabellum's Conquest miniatures. That's Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. In Actoroki, I will be returning to the DMing chair for the next episode of Burning Ceratop, a Burning Wheel campaign set in the world of Chaldea, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Roll with Rem Alternus returns on Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific. Then Friday, a week from today at 2 p.m. What's it going to be? Table Takes! Yes, going to be back here for Table Takes. All right. Thank you to the Gen Con TV 2. No, how about Gen Con TV crew? Marcus Mays, Steve Connard, Sarah Moore, Tanel Lovett. Thanks to my delightful co-hosts, Javion, Bonsai, and, oh, my notes say Anita, but I think that's supposed to be Noir. Last week's outro. Thanks to our special guests this week, John and Michelle Nephew and David Somerville. But most of all, thanks to all of you for coming along by and joining us with some banter and chat, and for sharing your geek insights in the Gen Con TV world as we talk about it and cover the news for you and have on really cool guests. All right. Well, remember to follow Gen Con TV, subscribe for more of the best 4 days in gaming all year long, right here on twitch.tv/GenConTV. Ta-ta for now.